Welcome back everyone to the Leggari YouTube channel, where we show you how to coat anything and everything. On today's project, we're gonna show you how to turn wood stairs into a decorative concrete finish, but that's not all. We're also gonna explain the process if you wanna turn these stairs into a decorative epoxy finish. So stay tuned.
What's the ratio on that?
So while Brian's rolling out this prep replacement primer, guys, go to the comments. Comment if you would rather have concrete looking steps or decorative epoxy. The only different step that you do when you're doing your second coat of texture coat is you need to hydrate. The reason we didn't hydrate on the first coat was because we did prep replacement primer. So that pretty much sealed up the wood. We don't need to hydrate now. The next coat, after you did your first coat, scratch coat, we have a porous surface, so that concrete's gonna be porous. It's gonna suck the moisture out of your second coat. That's why you wanna hydrate. And you guys hydrated with just a spray bottle, right? Obviously something like this, spray bottle, you can get a little 1 gallon pump up spray if you want. So that's really the only different thing that you have to do on the second coat is you have to hydrate. And then on this coat, we're gonna hydrate as well. And so you can sand heavy grit, 80 grit, 60 grit. I think Brian did 60 grit on this, palm sander. Obviously if you're doing larger sections, you can get a floor sander, stuff like that. Next step is scratch coat. We do the scratch coat. The scratch coat doesn't have any crushed marble. It's more like a paste, a concrete paste. That's gonna fill in the low spots, the texture spots. You can see after sanding, all the lighter spots or the high spots that were sanded down. And then basically now when we apply our scratch coat with a metal putty knife, trowel, it's gonna just drag on the tops of these flat surfaces and fill in these darker areas. And that's how we create like a hard troweled, smooth concrete finish.
like the moral support.
It's gonna be like, cold.
Sure. So obviously, guys, a lot of this is just repetitive now. You've seen the process, pretty simple. I mean, Brian could do this by himself, no problem. Want to just make sure you're pre-hydrating, hydrate. That's going to give you the maximum working time with the product. It's going to allow it to sit there the longest. Take your time, make sure you're pulling everything tight. You're not leaving it thick. You're looking for trowel edges where you can go back, you can flatten those off. And then that's how we get, again, that's how we get that flat finish. And then the next steps, I'm gonna be taking off, but the next steps are gonna be staining. You're just gonna rub stain on. You're gonna dip stain in a rag in a stain bucket. Just rub it on, wipe it on. You could even spray it. Obviously, you're gonna have to mask stuff off and then rub it in. But really simple to just get your rag wet, rub that in until it's dry, get it wet again. That'll create a really cool effect, like an antiqued effect on this concrete. They're doing black. And then once that's dry, coat a matte urethane. They're doing matte urethane on this. You always have to do 2 coats of urethane on the overlay. The first coat's gonna soak up quite a bit. And then the second coat's gonna get on the surface and create that protection, that top coat protection. So if you were doing epoxy on this project, we wouldn't be doing fiber tape, again, because epoxy's, the tensile strength is really, really high. And this fiber tape is gonna create a ridge. And if we fiber tape these seams and we try to epoxy them, you're gonna notice that. You're gonna have a lump there. You're gonna see that. If we tried to coat over this, you're gonna see that. You'd have to flood it first. You can't flood faces. And so never fiber tape when you're doing epoxy unless you're like flooding the floor. Right? Like I said, like if you were doing a wood subfloor, you would do fiber tape, then you would flood it, you would throw broadcast sand to rejection. That's going to cover your fiber tape, the thickness of the fiber tape. So if we were doing epoxy on here, we would bond to all the seams because we want to fill the seams so the resin doesn't soak down and just we lose resin down in there. A lot of times the seams won't fill up. So you'll coat it with epoxy and then you'll come back and you'll see these seams and gaps where the resin didn't fill up. The other thing is use some higher quality wood. What do you recommend for wood if they were going to do it with epoxy? Like cabinet grade plywood or something?
Yeah.
So obviously if you look at this wood, we have pits, we have knots, we have gouges missing. I mean, some of it's pretty jacked up. We would spend so much time filling and prepping this. So if you can ahead of time, make sure you let them know, hey, if you're going to sheet this, use higher grade cabinet grade plywood. It's going to be a lot smoother. You're not going to have to prep as much. And then we're not going to caulk these edges because we're not worried about the overlay. Plus they're going to trim this out. But typically if I was going to do epoxy on this, I would caulk these every seam, every edge, because I don't want to waste resin. Resin will just get down in there and leak. And so we want to minimize that. Overlays aren't as fluid. They're not like a liquid. They're still runny, but it's not like a watery liquid like resin. And it has crushed marble in it, so it's not gonna really go through these gaps like resin would. Few options. You can coat everything at once. If you coat everything at once, you're gonna have to create a catch basin on all these steps. We simply do it with cardboard. We fold cardboard in half. We'll tape it to here, and that'll be our catch basin. Because obviously, if we coat this, then we coat this one. Well, this one's gonna be dripping onto the top. You're gonna have all these drip marks, these basically circles where all the drips were at. It's not gonna look good. The other option is you can coat every other stair, and then you don't have to create a catch basin. So a few options. The catch basins work great. We do them a lot on counters, overhang counters. It's pretty simple, pretty fast. But keep in mind, when you have a catch basin here, you're not gonna have as much room to work your resin here. But again, you could coat them all at once instead of turning it in to like a 2-day project. So typically I would probably just create some catch basins really, really quick. But again, if you don't wanna do that and you're not rushed, just coat every other stair, and then you can really take your time and be methodical about it. The other thing that could work if you do that is obviously if you coat every other stair, you can dam up your faces, pour a little thicker, like we do on our stone countertop kits, and then let these set up, and then pull your tape so the resin's set up. Now it's flowing over slower, and you're getting a thicker face. You're getting a thicker product down that face, and you'll get diagonal veins and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. Few options when you're doing epoxies.